Welcome to the Earth Your Wow podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? So today we're joined by Thom Groot. Thom is the co-founder and CEO at the Electric Car Scheme. The Electric Car Scheme is a salary sacrifice scheme for small and medium businesses that allows employees to access electric cars in the easiest and cheapest way possible. Thanks for joining us today, Thom.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hello. I did do a bit of research, Thom. So apparently you founded the Electric Car Scheme in 2021, so quite recently. I was interested to know kind of what inspired you to create this specific company, but in this specific industry and with the business model that you've got, because it's a fairly unique, from what I can see, a fairly unique, business.
Yeah, it is a unique business, and really it came about from me and my co-founder Thom trying to get an electric car. I think it was back in 2019, and Thom was moving back from Canada. We looked at getting an electric car, and we found that for a family car, the electric equivalent of like a Nissan Qashqai or another small family car was about 4 times the price as a petrol or diesel car. But we were very keen to do the right thing and go green, but we found it was just too expensive. And then we stumbled upon this tax incentive, which has just been announced by the government, which works very similar to cycle to work. So if you get the car through your employer, you can pay for the car out of your monthly gross salary. And that means you don't pay income tax and national insurance on your salary, which makes it 30 to 60% cheaper, depending a bit on how much tax you pay. And so we try to access that benefit from the government and from car providers, and literally everyone we spoke to was like, oh, either we don't know about this because it's very niche, or well, we do know about this, it's for company cars, and if you do you employ at least 2,000 employees? And if the answer is no, they weren't that interested in talking to us. So, out of that really came the idea to set up something similar to Cycle to Work, but for electric cars, but make sure it's accessible for anyone working at any business, not just people working for large corporates. And yeah, we got going. We're actually due to launch the business in March 2020, which was obviously not a great time to launch a new company. So stuck with our jobs for a little bit longer, and then fully launched to the public at the end of 2020, early 2021. Have grown very rapidly since then.
Exciting. And so do people actually buy the car from you, or are you more just sorting out
we're more the service provider. So
I
guess we as the Electric Car Scheme would work with any employer to say, look, we will offer this as a employee benefit for your team. And employees, they don't buy the car, they lease the car. So you pay a monthly payment for the car so that it can come out of your monthly salary, and you can get the tax incentive, because you can imagine if you're buying the car in 1 month, you wouldn't have sufficient salary to sacrifice and pay for the car that way. And what we do is we run the scheme and administer it for the employer. So we take care of all the admin, the paperwork, the HR, tax compliance, those sort of things. And then we also work with employees to find them the car of their choice from across a range of lease providers so they get the best price. And the way that works is we partner with, I think it's the top 6 or 7 lease companies in the UK, and say you want a Tesla Model 3, which is a very popular car, we will find the lease company that's the best price on that car at that time to make sure you don't just get the tax savings, but you also get the best possible monthly price on that car that's available in the market at that stage. So we kind of do 2 things. One, on the employer side, make sure it's a no-brainer, super easy for them to run. We take all the hassle away, if you will, for the employer, make it easy for them to support employees on it. And then on the employee side, we make sure you get the tax savings as well as the best price on the car in the market. And that's really our job. And we've got kind of different teams helping employers and employees with that all the time.
Cool. So it doesn't cost the employer, does it? It's more a benefit for the employee that you're helping to facilitate. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So as the employee, it's pretty obvious. Like if you're going to get an electric car, a scheme like the Electric Car Scheme is the most affordable way to do it, because you save that 30 to 60% through the savings in tax and national insurance. What we say to the employer is we'll make sure it's no cost for you to run. But the way that happens in the background is there's actually also a saving on the employer side, because if you are sacrificing some of your salary, your employer also pays less national insurance
Right.
on the employer side. And we take that as a fee so that we can fund our business and fund the service that we provide from employers. So there's no net cost to them. It's basically zero cost, but we can still pay for our team and pay for all of the services that we offer employers.
It's a smart idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And did you say you and your co-founder, you're both called Tom as well?
Yeah, that's right.
Did I
Can
hear
get
that?
very, very confusing for the team. So yeah, Tom Alon, my co-founder, he used to work at Funding Circle for many years, and then my name is Thom Groot. I'm from Holland and used to work at the AA before the electric car scheme. So yeah, we run it as co-founders together, and we've now built a team of, I think we're just coming up to 50 employees,
Wow.
working across kind of sales, marketing, technology, to make it all happen for employers.
Brilliant. Yeah, so should we talk a bit about like electric cars versus petrol or diesel? Because when I was looking into getting a car, I thought really carefully about it and I really wanted an electric car, but there were loads of things that were worrying me and I was like, oh, and in the end, I didn't get one. And I guess it's like cost, infrastructure. I was really worried about where would I charge it. At the time, I
Yep.
was renting, so I couldn't just put a charging thing in the place I was renting. I thought it would be more expensive. I thought, I just didn't know how it was going to work, so I didn't go for it.
Yeah, and
How?
you're definitely not the only one. I think when you look at the UK, some people have gone into electric cars and I can explain why, but there's the majority of people haven't yet made the choice to go electric. So I think because we do research around this and we interview people and ask them like, why are you doing this? Why are you not doing it? Number one, do you care about the environment? Do you think it's the right thing to do? And everyone says, yes, I know I need to do this. I want to do it. I want to be greener. That when I look at it, they have the same concerns you do. The biggest one is just cost and affordability. So an electric car, buying a new electric car tends to be about 20 to 30% more expensive than an equivalent petrol or diesel car. And obviously, if you normally would buy a used car, there are very few used electric cars in the market. So it's just at the lower price points, there's much less availability for electric cars versus petrol and diesel cars. So it's interesting with electric cars, obviously the cost up front can be a bit higher, but then your cost during the lifetime of the car is much lower. They require significantly less maintenance because it's an electric engine, which has got far fewer moving parts. So they go wrong a lot less. Obviously, the cost of fuel tends to be about 3 to 4 times cheaper, depending on where you charge it. So you save a lot on your petrol costs. And then I guess if you access the car through something like the electric car scheme, you can also save on the monthly cost of the car. So there are ways to lower the cost of the cars, but there's still a long way to go as a country. And we in particular need to do more to get more secondhand electric cars out there to make it more affordable for people. Because that is still the biggest barrier why people are not making the choice. And then, like you said, the other thing is things like, oh, I'm not sure. Look, it's new technology. Slightly worried about it. That's put people's mind at ease. An electric car versus a petrol car, very, very similar. Well, the only difference is the fuel you put in it. And then in terms of charging infrastructure, it's a lot easier, obviously, for people that can charge it at home. So, have a driveway, you can plug the car into either the normal plug socket or get a charger fitted on their house to charge it at home, which also makes the cost of charging a lot cheaper. But if you can't do that and you rely on public charging, there's been a lot of infrastructure investment to develop public charging, but in some places it's still not great. Although I would say we're now at the point where there's way more electric public charge points than there is petrol stations. So most people are a lot closer to an electric charge point than they are to a petrol station. But still in people's mind, they worry about it and they worry about, look, am I going to run out of juice, a couple of 100 miles on a long journey?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you could, but so could you with a petrol car. So
Yeah.
it's not really that different. And because the range of electric cars is now more than 300-400 miles, and you very rarely drive 300 or 400 miles in one sitting without stopping off, it's actually not as big a problem in reality as it is in people's mind. And that's just because it's a big change and people worry about it. And I would say the press hasn't helped because there's quite a lot of negative press stories about EVs because that's what grabs attention. And there's a bit of a political agenda around ULEZ and all that stuff on the side, which makes it sometimes harder for people to really understand what's going on and make sense of it. And then if you can't make sense of it, you put off the decision for a little bit. So it really kind of electric car take up went really, really fast a couple of years ago, but then over the last 12 months, it's really slowed down a bit. And we've got quite a long way to go to making sure every car in the country is electric, and we're not there yet.
How long will it be before every car's electric, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict the future, right? So we used to have a target in the country for 2030 for every new car on the road, a personal car to be an electric car. And the recent government announced that deadline was moved back to 2035. So, and I think that's a more realistic and reasonable target. It gives us more time to get there and make sure costs come down for everyone and it's more affordable for everyone. So that should mean by 2035, every new car, a personal car on the road is electric. But obviously, most cars on the road aren't new cars; they're used cars, right? So it will then still take us, I think, through to 2050 for all cars on the road to be electric, because people will still be using their petrol and diesel cars, until they no longer have a useful life. And I think that's the right thing. What you don't want to do is call back all petrol and diesel cars and waste all the energy and materials that have already gone into making them when they're still perfectly good. So we'll take quite a lot of time for us to transition. But yeah, for new cars, it should be basically over the next 10 years.
And so all the major car manufacturers, are they is there any reason why they wouldn't transition to completely electric ranges, do you think? Or
I think they're all sort of looking at it and going, yes, we know we need to do this. And most car companies are investing a lot in electric, and obviously fully electric car companies like Tesla have grown massively over the last few years. So everyone is getting involved. What was difficult for the car manufacturers to do is they have to plan their factories and their manufacturing capacity quite a few years in advance, because setting up a car factory takes quite a lot of time and investment. And they're a bit uncertain about the pace of change. So obviously the government changing its mind and resetting timelines has been quite unhelpful for car manufacturers to really plan their capacity. So some are moving a lot faster, some are moving a bit slower. But what has happened in the background is the UK government has set very clear mandated targets now for car manufacturers that a certain percentage of their cars every year has to be fully electric. And if they don't meet that target, they can get fines and penalties. So the industry in itself is really changing quite rapidly to make sure they meet the targets and keep us on track to meet that 2035 deadline.
And I suppose we've also got to reach net zero by 2050, which 2050 to me seems like a long way away. But I suppose reaching net zero is a huge task. How important do you think electric vehicles will be in helping us to make that step towards net zero?
Achieve that? Net zero. I mean, it is obviously a massive challenge, and 2050, while it feels like a long way away, actually we need to do quite a lot of work between now and then to get to net zero. I guess my view on net zero overall, I feel pretty positive about it, right? I think we will get there by 2050, although that will probably be too late to meet our climate change goals, and temperatures will rise more than the 1.5 degrees target that we set ourselves. I feel optimistic about electric cars. I think they're a big part of the solution, because transport is the biggest source of carbon emissions, at least it is in the UK. And moving to electric obviously changes that dramatically. The other bits, obviously, we need to solve how do we create our energy, right? We need to move to fully renewable, because otherwise the electricity that we put into our cars and other places where we use energy isn't actually clean. And I think, again, in energy generation, we've already made a load of progress. And I can see with solar becoming super cheap, because it has got 10 times cheaper over the last 5 years. Wind energy, nuclear, we will get there. I'm very confident of that. I think the areas where we then need to make big changes, where we've not made much progress yet, is heating your home. So areas like heat pumps, the UK is massively behind other countries, and we've got a big mountain to climb in terms of how we heat our homes. Things like electric boilers replacing gas boilers, we've barely started on that road, and the technology and the capacity isn't there yet. And then, my hope as well is that kind of the use of solar will increase dramatically, because we do need to tackle those three problems as well as the electric cars to really get to net zero. And I think with electric cars, we sort of got started on the journey about, let's say 10, 15 years ago. I think it was 2010, 2011 when the first production electric cars hit the UK roads. And over the last 10, 15 years, we've made progress, but there's still a long way to go. I think with the other technologies, we're probably 5, 10 years earlier in the journey. So a lot of work to do to really get to net zero in that space.
I bought my last car in COVID in 2021. Unfortunately, I bought a diesel one for the same reasons as you, really. Although I do want an electric one now.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
but I noticed like there seemed to be like a shortage of cars for some reason. Well, that's what everyone was telling me anyway.
Yep.
Why is that, and how does that how's that impacting this transition with electric vehicles? Is that good or bad or?
Yeah, I mean, you're coming back to a time just post COVID, so I can try and explain what effectively happened when COVID hit. A lot of industries had to stop manufacturing and stop production, and also a lot of companies stopped investing because they weren't so sure about what was going to happen in the next few years. So, and what happened was there's little chips in most products, including cars, called semiconductors. They're in your laptop, they're in your computer games, they're in your car as well to run basically the electronic circuits. And the producers of semiconductors all stopped creating new factories and new capacity because they weren't so sure how much they were going to sell. Then obviously, as COVID turned out, it was bad, but it wasn't quite as bad as some people feared. When everything restarted, they were a couple of years behind creating this production capacity, which meant a lot of cars could be produced like 95% of the way, but they couldn't put the chips in to make the electronics work. So 2021, 2022, there's been massive issues in production of cars, as well as other products, if I'm honest. And we're only just catching up on that and getting production back up. So when you bought your car, it was really a time where if you wanted a new car, you could order one, but you'd be waiting 9 months, 12 months for the chips to be produced for you to get the car. Whereas we're used to, if you want a new car, you just go to the dealer and get one off the forecourt. They've got them kind of readily available. So it was quite an unusual time, really caused by COVID and the impact that had, as well as the start of the Ukraine war, because a lot of the production was happening in Ukraine of some of these parts, and that obviously was impacted by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I think we've got over that now in the new car market, but it meant for a while, at least, both used cars and new cars were quite hard to get a hold of, and it pushed prices up. So you probably paid a bit more for your
Yeah.
diesel car back then than you'd have to pay now because things have returned a bit more to normal.
Yeah. So a price is going to be going down for cars, do you think? And
I hope
electric
so.
cars
Yeah, I
especially?
really hope so.
Yeah.
I think for electric cars, especially for a couple of reasons. One, there's more capacity, there's more production. People are building more cars and getting smarter about how they're building as some production costs are coming down. Basically, it's called economies of scale. As you produce more, you get smarter, cost comes down. So that's a good thing. I think second, there's more competition, especially out of China. There's a lot of manufacturers that have started up in China producing great cars at much lower costs, and I think that will help bring the prices down. And then the other one is a big one is the battery of the electric car. Quite a lot of the cost goes into the battery, but the technology and the chemistry has improved massively so that one, we need fewer materials to go into the battery. Which obviously makes it cheaper and better for the environment. But two, also the production of those materials has really come down as we've needed them more. So, for example, lithium is kind of a key material that goes into batteries. The cost of production of that has really reduced and is expected to reduce more because we've needed more of it, so more research has gone into that technology. And yeah, that means the cost of the new cars is coming down massively. And then I guess the secondary effect is also as there's now more new electric cars that have been used for a few years, we're starting to see electric cars come onto the used car market, which means again you can now pick up a car that's probably only a couple of years old, but it's obviously a lot cheaper than a new car, which is I think great for making it more affordable and yeah, helping more people get into electric cars. With the electric car scheme, for example, the way we set up is we do car leasing, and for a long time you used to only be able to lease a new car. But we're now experimenting with and have launched a used car leasing product. So that also brings the cost down. And it's only really been made possible with electric cars. You never used to be able to lease a used petrol or diesel car, I think mainly to do with the warranty on the car and how long that's valid for. But with electric cars, because they go wrong a lot less, the warranty periods tend to be a lot longer. So you can also now lease used electric cars. And that's also, again, bringing the cost of cars on the scheme down.
Yeah, I suppose that must help with like the environmental impact of the vehicle as well. I suppose the longer the vehicle's around,
Yeah.
probably the lower the impact, right? So
Yeah, that's right.
um,
Because obviously you still, when you're producing a car, a lot of energy and a lot of materials go into creating the car. So the more use you can get out of them and the more life you can get out of them, the less the impact is on the environment. And definitely with electric cars, you're starting to see that they actually last a lot longer than people think. The batteries last a lot longer than people think, and they do a lot more miles than people anticipated, which I think is a great thing because, really, why are we only using cars typically for 10, 20 years. It feels a bit nuts. Why can't we use them for 30, 40 years? And I think with electric cars that will be possible. So obviously early days because we haven't been around that long yet. But when we get there, I think we'll be surprised that they'll last a lot longer than petrol and diesel cars.
Yeah. What is the environmental argument for electric vehicles? Because obviously we know we need to transition away from fossil fuels, but what are the pros and cons there?
In terms of carbon emissions and impact on the environment?
Yeah, just in obviously you mentioned how long the car lasts, running it, and obviously the battery. There's an environmental cost there.
Yeah, I think the kind of the way to think about it is probably in two stages. One is manufacturing the thing, and then the second is running the car. And obviously with a petrol or diesel car, when you run it, you do need to put fossil fuel in it, and it does have quite a lot of carbon emissions. Whereas with an electric car, you put in electricity, which is at the moment mostly renewable energy, but hopefully definitely by 2050 will be all renewable energy, right? So the carbon emissions on use are like 6 to and will be 10, infinitely lower because there's no emissions when you're actually driving it. It's all about what the energy is that's going in. For the manufacturing side, it's very similar between a petrol car and an electric car. Albeit with the battery chemistry kind of improving, I think the environmental impact of electric cars at manufacturing point is actually reducing. So they're also greener to produce than petrol and diesel cars. But that's not always been the case because it's still relatively new technology has been developing. So when you kind of add the two together, I haven't got the data in front of me, but my recollection is that an electric car over a lifetime of use of a car, which at the moment is about 20 years, it could be longer, right? But if you assume it's the same for electric car as a petrol or diesel car, is that the emissions are about 5 times lower over the lifetime of the car for an electric car than a petrol car. And the total cost of the thing, because obviously electric car is cheaper to run, but costs a bit more upfront. The total cost of ownership is also lower on an electric car than it is on a petrol car, but is obviously a little bit more upfront, and they then save because it's a lot cheaper to run over year by year.
Yeah, so no brainer really.
Yeah,
it's a no-brainer if you can afford the upfront cost, or you have access to something like the electric car scheme. That's the main challenge.
Yeah. Unless you read the press where they say they're all going to blow up and
yeah, it's really interesting. Like there's also some press that say, oh, electric cars are catch fire. And I think one or two have, but then you forget that a higher percentage of petrol and diesel cars catch fire also.
Well, yeah.
So it just all depends how you spin these stories.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, exactly. And if you look at the stats, petrol and diesel cars are more flammable, but obviously one or two accidents with electric cars, and certain media outlets are prefer a story that gets the clicks and gets the attention.
Yeah, they have a lot to answer for, the media, don't they, when it comes to blowing it out of proportion.
Yeah, I agree.
And so in terms of like the batteries in electric cars, because I probably need to buy another car soon, a new car. So I was also kind of thinking like, does the battery, what is the life of like a battery? And like, when you're charging it, is it like if I'm driving along and I'm in some random city and I need to recharge my battery, am I going to be stuck there for hours charging it, or what's the...
Yeah, I think there's sort of two questions that you're asking. One is like, will the battery last a long time, or does it degrade a bit like a rechargeable battery when you charge it 200 times? Like it doesn't last as long. So you see that with electric car batteries as well. I think over a period of 10 years, they lose about 10 to 20% of their capacity. So it's not as bad as your mobile phone, where I know people have that problem, but they do degrade slightly over time. But it's not a problem if you think about the lifespan of a car being 20, 30, 40 years. There's sufficient kind of lifetime in that battery. I think in terms of charging, like it does take longer to charge an electric car at the moment than it does to fill up with petrol, albeit most people do it at home. So for example, I can charge at home. I get back home in the evening, I just plug it in and go in the house, and I don't have to worry about it. So in terms of my effort, it's only about 10 seconds at the start and end of the day, versus if I go to a petrol station, I'm stood there for 5 minutes, right? So it's actually more efficient in terms of my time. But if you're out in a city that you don't know, and you don't know where the charge points are, and depending on how fast the charge point is, you could be needing a stop for half an hour to charge your car up, and that can be a little bit frustrating for people. So our advice always to people is to, one, Plan your journeys. If you can charge at home, charge at home. If you can charge at your destination, that's obviously much easier because you can go inside and get on with your day. But if you need to charge en route, plan your route and use a tool like ZapMap to kind of figure out where the best charge points are. You can filter for like faster ones. You can filter for stuff that's on your journey, but it takes a little bit more planning. In the same way, I would say that planning to stop by a petrol station is at some point you need to do some planning for that. Obviously, if you're on the motorway, you know it's going to be there, but that's the same for an electric car charger. If you're somewhere a little bit more unknown, you would still go on Google Maps or somewhere else to find a petrol station, and that's no different for an electric car.
Yeah, it's just I guess people have just got to get used to that little bit of like behavioral change, haven't they? And that's what
Yeah,
people
it's a
are
change.
scared of
It's a
doing.
slight behavioral change. I would say quite a lot of the things people are worried about are very similar for petrol and diesel cars. Like you have to charge it. Okay, well, you have to fuel it. And actually, when you really start to think about it, it's also a lot more convenient with an electric car if you can charge it at home, right? If you can't charge at home, it can be more challenging because you have to make sure you've got adequate charging near kind of where you live. But that infrastructure is improving all of the time. And then, yeah, the actual driving of the car, you do end up with some people thinking electric cars are very, very different from a petrol or diesel car, but they're not that different. And I would always say to people, until you've tried it out, don't challenge me on it being a worse car to drive. Just go and try and drive one and see for yourself, right? And see if you like it. And if you don't like it, fair enough. But if you do like it, then let's help you. Then I think they are a great step towards net zero. And for people who are trying to be greener, again, carbon emissions from transport and from cars are the biggest source of our personal carbon emissions. So it makes a massive difference towards getting to net zero by changing the way you drive. And it doesn't actually take a massive change in behavior. The affordability, yes, that's a challenge. I see that getting better. Things like the electric car scheme make it better, but it is a real challenge. I think a lot of the other challenges that people have against electric cars are really starting to fade away very, very quickly now that the infrastructure is better. And so, between now and 2035, if we can solve the affordability problem better by, like I said, hopefully electric cars, new ones will get cheaper. We'll see more used cars coming onto the market. And initiatives like the electric car scheme can make a big difference on the affordability side. And then I think we'll see the transition really speed up. So that will happen, I think, in the next 3 years. We'll go from, at the moment, I think it's 1 in 6 new cars is an electric car, and I think we'll see that shift to more than half in the next 3 years as those things come in. And yeah, in particular, the affordability challenge starts to look a bit different and look a bit better for consumers.
I suppose for the people that don't like them, it's probably more of a case of like when rather than if, right? Like eventually they probably just won't be able to buy
hopefully
a diesel car.
Hopefully we go that way, right?
Yeah, and like by 2035 you won't be able to buy a new petrol or diesel car.
Yeah.
But I think even before then it'll become very unattractive because who are you going to sell it to? So
yeah, that's a good point.
if you're buying a new petrol car in 2034, and you might sell it, say 10 years later, like at that point, I think most people will be buying electric cars. So I think towards 2035, in the last few years, we'll see the transition really, really, really quickly because unless you're planning on buying a car that you're going to drive for the next 30 years, which very few people do because life changes, circumstances change. I think we'll see that transition happen very, very quickly towards the end of that deadline, which is good because 2035, I mean, it still only gives us 15 years to 2050 to try and phase out, I guess, the used cars and make sure they're replaced with electric cars as well. So we do need to keep the pace up a little bit as a country, otherwise we'll miss our targets.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on hybrid cars? Are they almost like a starting phase? Is it a bit greenwashy? Like how do they fit in?
It depends a little bit how you look at it, right? I think if you look at the pure carbon emission side, they're not as green as people think because again, most of the miles end up being driven on petrol, and you're creating both a petrol engine and an electric engine, so the cost of the environmental cost of making the car can be a bit higher. But it can also be a great way for people that are really skeptical about electric cars to test it out in a relatively safe way. So I guess my view is a hybrid is definitely better than a petrol or diesel car. It's not as good as an electric car. I personally don't see why you wouldn't go straight to an electric car unless you're really worried about driving an electric car and you've been for a test drive and you still don't like it, that you want to go for a middle ground option and have that backup of having petrol in the car. But I guess in my view they're a bit of no man's land in between. And I'd rather people switch fully to electric cars sooner rather than later, because to get the full environmental benefit, obviously you don't want to, we don't want to be burning any petrol or diesel.
So, if I was looking to buy an electric car,
Yeah.
what are the best electric cars to buy?
Ah,
In
that's a
your
good question.
opinion,
I think,
as an expert.
yeah. Well, I think it hugely depends on your circumstances and what you're looking for. So when I started with the electric car scheme, I got it was called a Renault Zoe at the time, so it's very similar to the Renault Clio, little small hatchback, had good range, very economical. It was perfect for what I needed at the time. But I've since had 3 children, and so I can't fit 3 kids in the Renault Zoe. So I drive what's called a Kia Niro, which is a small family car, which is, again, it's got, I think the range is about 290 miles. It's very economical. It's perfect for my circumstances. What we see with our customers is they go for the Teslas are very, very popular. They've got great range. They've got great technology. And they've taken massive market shares. The Model 3, Model Y, very popular. MGs are very popular. They've done a model called the MG4, which is, again, it's like a fun sort of between a hatchback and an SUV. Good value for money. So they're very, very popular. And then we've seen literally a load of people just buy the cars and the brands that they love. So if you used to drive a VW petrol car, you might end up with a VW electric car. And most brands now have developed electric cars in, an SUV, in a hatchback, in a saloon car, and all the different shapes and sizes that people want. So yeah, we see literally people getting anything and everything on the scheme, but Tesla is the most popular brand that we see with customers.
Yeah. What's your favorite electric car?
I love our Kia Niro,
Yeah.
mainly because I think it's a very good car and it's very good value for money. And I think affordability is, like for many people, is very important for us and our family. We can just about fit 3 kids in the back row, which means we can all fit in, and it's got great range. So Kia don't pay me for sponsorship, but I've loved driving that car since I've had it, couple of years now. So yeah, big fan.
Is it more families that are sort of the biggest portion of the market for electric cars at the moment, or is it more like businesses trying to attract?
Yeah, so I don't know. I can't speak for the whole market. I can only look at what we do with the electric car scheme. So what we've seen is businesses of any shape, size, and form take it up. So we've got loads of small businesses that get involved, some medium-sized businesses, also some very large corporates. And then we're seeing, because at first I thought, oh, maybe we'll see lots of concentration around cities where people may be greener, like, I don't know, Bristol or London or Edinburgh, where there's a lot of more green movements. But actually what you see in our take-up data is it's pretty universal. So countryside versus city, don't see massive changes. Small companies, large companies, there's good take-up across them. It's not like particular industries. Obviously, with the scheme, you do see that the more tax you pay, the more you save. And because electric cars are more expensive, you do see more take-up from people that earn more money because they've got more affordability for electric cars in general. Because it's still, it's all new cars, and the monthly payments are not not always affordable for everyone. So we do see at the moment more take up for higher earners, but as that affordability barrier gets broken down, I'm hoping to see that shift in the next couple of years. And like I said, that for me is still like the biggest challenge. Is like not everyone can afford to make this switch yet. And really, when you ask customers, I think it's about 2/3 that say, I really would love to go and get an electric car, but it's just still that little bit too expensive at the moment. And that's got to be the biggest challenge that we still have to solve in the next couple of years.
Does it not work out cheaper with the salary sacrifice?
It does if you get a new car, right? So with the
Right.
salary sacrifice, you save 30 to 60% on the monthly cost. As I said, the driving cost is much lower because the energy costs are much less than petrol and diesel. The maintenance cost is much lower, but it's still a new car. So if you compare it to if you currently drive, let's say it's a 20-year-old Renault Clio,
Right.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
That cost you, maybe £1,000, £2,000 to buy versus a new, let's say it's the Renault Zoe, they still cost 25, 30 grand to buy. Now on the monthly cost, that might be, let's say it's £300 a month. After tax savings, it becomes £160 a month. That's still £160 a month versus a used car that might, upfront might not be as much to buy. And that's where I think we really still need to see the shift happen is in the sort of, the more affordable cars to really drive that behavior change.
Yeah, but it's definitely heading the right way, though, isn't it? It seems to me more affordable even than it was a few years ago, unless I just have learned a lot on this podcast that I didn't know.
No, it definitely is.
Did
And
again.
again, when me and Tom were looking at cars back in 2019, there wasn't many models out there. There wasn't that many brands producing cars, and the ones, most of the cars that you could get were actually quite the luxury end of cars, right? And we've really seen that shift over the last 2 years. I think now most brands offer various makes and models. There's something for everyone, and the prices have come down. But I would say there's still scope for bringing down the cost a lot further. And I'm quite excited about this year actually, because there's a lot of new cars coming out this year that are more the affordable end of the scale. So I think there's a brand called Dacia. They're bringing out an SUV for, I think it's about 15 grand. So on our scheme, kind of monthly cost shouldn't be too high. You add on the tax savings, it becomes, I think that's a game changer. Affordable cars like that for everyone. So yeah, we're definitely on the right direction. I think we've grown a lot over the last 3 years because people are very interested in salary sacrifice and getting involved, and that's, I think, driving take up nationally. But there's also still a long way to go and lots of opportunities to bring costs down further. So yeah, I'm really excited to see what 2024, 2025 will do in that respect. And I think then yeah, I think everyone has their role to play, the government in making sure there's the right kind of support for consumers and affordability, but also the car manufacturers in making sure they're creating more affordable cars. And I think yeah, with production costs coming down and with material costs coming down, I think we will see a big shift over the next couple of years for sure.
It's exciting. I think obviously we run like a small business and we have some company cars, and to me it just seems like a really smart thing to do. If you're running a small business, if you can give somebody a nice car, you might attract that talent, and if it's going to be more cost effective for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about the electric car scheme as an employee benefit, it's like you're giving someone a massive savings on their car for no cost to your business. It's a bit of a no-brainer, right? No hassle, no admin, no cost to you as a business, and then for the employee, a big saving on their driving, and a big step towards towards net zero for that individual and for your business, right? So
yeah,
most businesses will have to report on their emissions, in the next few years. So scope 3 emissions, which includes employee commuting, is part of that. And obviously, if you introduce electric cars to your team, then that can also make a big difference to what you do as a business and the environmental impact you have as a business. So yeah, we're also now seeing more and more businesses get involved from that angle, not just, hey, this is a great employee benefit, but also, hey, we're quite serious about becoming green as a business, and so are our employees. And so we'd really love to offer the scheme and get people driving electric, because it actually makes quite a big difference, particularly if you've got people commuting into your office by car.
Yeah. And so this kind of, I don't know what you call it, but the salary sacrifice, is that like a government, it's like a government kind of scheme? Is that the word?
Yeah, it is. So similar and very similar to cycle to work. So it's a concept that many of us use for our pension. We salary sacrifice, put money into our pension for cycling. So you salary sacrifice, you get a bike, and now it's also applicable to electric cars. And the regulation really hinges on what's called the benefit in kind tax that you'd pay on any benefit you get from your company. And for electric cars, that's set at a really low rate. So you can also do salary sacrifice for a petrol car. It's just the tax on a petrol car is very, very high. So you then end up with a savings. In fact, you typically end up paying more for the car if you do it through something else salary sacrifice. With electric cars, like with cycle to work, you get a massive tax savings, and it makes it much more affordable. So yes, it's kind of the way the government are trying to play their part in driving this switch, helping, I guess, both company car drivers, where people get a company car given to them as a benefit, but also through salary sacrifice. And yeah, we've been fighting the good fight over the last few years to make more people aware of it, because obviously the government don't do any advertising campaigns around this, and they leave it to kind of companies like us to help employers find out about it, set it up, because it can be quite complex to set up. You have to make sure you do everything in the right way to be compliant with the rules. But that's where we found a good niche to build a really useful business that is helping people to get to net zero and really spread the awareness and get people to make that switch a bit sooner through salary sacrifice, which is it's a great mechanism to get the savings and make it more affordable, like you said.
Yeah, and is that something that will just be around forever, or is it like a limited opportunity for businesses or people?
Yeah, I think it's going to be time bound. So the benefit in kind tax rate is set out in the budget normally. So we know it's a low rate until 2028 at least. And my expectation with the 2035 deadline is until 2035, there'll be this incentive and support for people to get a car through salary sacrifice. But once we're all driving electric cars, that may no longer be the case because at that point, there doesn't really need to be government incentives and support to make the switch. So, yeah, what our expectation is probably until at least 2028. We know it's in law, and beyond that, it's uncertain, but we'd expect it to continue till about 2035, but it won't be around for forever. So, yeah, we're trying to get more people involved now because this is where we need to make the big transition and the big step change to improve and increase the number of people driving electric cars. And the tax benefit hopefully will be around until 2035, but we don't know for sure because it depends a bit on government policy and how much they are willing to support this transition or not. And that also will hugely depend on who's in power and the election results and all of these wonderfully unpredictable things that may or may not happen in the next few years. So yeah, we've got clarity for 4 or 5 years, and then beyond that, we'll have to see what happens. So get involved now.
No,
well, I was going to say,
now.
if so for anyone listening, so like if there was like one piece of advice that you'd give them, what would it be? Anyone that's obviously thinking about buying a car.
Yeah, I think if you're interested in electric cars and salary sacrifice, we've got loads of information on the site. So it's electriccarscheme.com, and you can find out how it works. You can run a little quote, pick your car and see how it might work for you, and does it make it affordable for you. But also, if you've got questions about how the scheme works or how it's set up, there's loads of stuff on there. And then I'd say in general, I would also say to people, if you haven't yet done this, go and test drive an electric car and see for yourself. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there in the media. Lots of people have very strong opinions despite never having driven a car. And I think the best way is just to go and try it out. Right? It's not that much effort to go and do. And if you're interested, I think that's a great way to start your journey and start learning about it. And then look, if you then are convinced, like I was, to get into an electric car, then the electric car scheme is a great cost-effective way to do it. But obviously, if you're going to be skeptical about electric cars and you don't go and test drive them, then we're not the right company to help you with that. You've got to lean into electric cars first before we can really help with that.
I did read something on your website about if like an employee gets a company car, for example, and then they like leave the company.
Yeah.
Are you able to return the car or something? Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So one of the challenges on the employer side, like the business side with salary sacrifice is, you've committed on half of that employee for, let's say it's a 3-year lease. And what if the employee resigns a year into that lease? Now, the contract for the car is still with your company. So what we do as part of the service that we provide to employers is we protect the employer from any financial risk associated with employees leaving. So if someone resigns, or if you have to make someone redundant, for example, you're not left holding that risk as a business. We take all of that away because it's one of the consequences of getting the benefit of salary sacrifice. You end up with that risk as an employer. And what we try and do is make sure that the way we set up the scheme is it's a no-brainer for the employer to say yes to this, because obviously you as the employee get the tax benefit and you save a load of money on your car, but that can't really come at a cost to your employer. So we've set up the scheme to basically say, look, there's no cost to your business. We take all the hassle and the admin away, and we also take that financial risk away if you have a leaver, to make sure you're not left with the cost as a business that you weren't expecting because you didn't read the fine print of kind of how it all works. So we try and we make sure we take that away.
That really is a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If I was just listening to you thinking, oh no, we've got some company lease cars and we're like locked into them for like 3 years or something. So
I really feel like we've messed up now. We need to go back in time.
Must be your fault.
Oh.
Well, listen, if you're interested in setting up with us, let me know and I'll get one of the team to get in touch, because we're just trying to get more and more companies involved, and especially those involved in kind of the greener industries. We'd love to support people on their net zero journey.
Yeah,
cool.
We have like a closing question that we always like to try and ask every guest, and we get some. Well, what we normally say is we like to ask, where do you see the world in 10 years? We normally get some fairly interesting responses. So, from your perspective, with your company, with the electric car scheme, where do you see us in 10 years?
Yeah, so that'll be 2034. So we'll be hopefully on target to hit our 2035 deadline of all new cars being electric. I think I'm hugely positive about net zero. So I think when I see the transition we're making in energy generation, I think we're on a great trajectory, loads to do, but also lots of really green shoots, in particular with solar and wind, renewable energy. I'd like to be in a place where by 2035, definitely 99% of the energy that we use in the UK comes from renewable sources. I think we can do that. Like I said, electric cars, hopefully there won't be that much skepticism out there. Costs will come down and look, it's a no-brainer. Their next car is electric, and people can get a used electric car. And then, I'm quite, I guess where I'm excited, but there's even more to be done is, we'd love to get involved in helping people get into heat pumps, electric boilers, solar at home, battery storage, energy solutions to make us completely get to net zero. So I think by, in 10 years time, we won't have solved that completely yet, but hopefully we've made a good dent and we're on the right track to get to 2050. And I guess my hope then is that, as a country and people in the country and, our children we're all feeling a lot more positive about net zero. Because what I see today is a lot of people are very anxious about it and feel very depressed about it and say, look, this is all going to shit. Climate change is happening and there's no way we're going to hit net zero. I'm more optimistic. And I'd love to be in a place in 10 years' time where people really feel optimistic about that as well, because I think it's unnecessarily getting people down today, and I don't think that's helpful for anyone. So hopefully we'll be in a much more positive place in 10 years' time.
Yeah, I think you've got a great positive kind of outlook.
Yeah.
It's kind of oozing out of the screen.
Yeah, I think we've made more progress than people think, and I think if you just read the press, you only read the negative stories. But if you really dig it underneath the skin, actually, like the cost of solar is 99.9% cheaper than it was 25 years ago. It's incredible. And if you look at countries like China, there's obviously lots in the press around China, around data security and human rights. And I'm not saying those are good things about China, but one of the things that has happened in China is just the take-up of EVs, the take-up of solar has gone way faster than anyone ever imagined. And that's actually really, really positive. But you don't read that in the press. So I think when I look at the data, I feel much more optimistic than most people do. And I think I can start to see the green shoots, and I'm hoping people will feel that. They won't feel that today or tomorrow, but in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, I think that will come through, and we'll probably make a lot more progress than we think we will, because we tend to go on what we read in the news, and that tends to be quite negative, because that's what gets people attention.
Yeah, I think from your perspective, you've got like a great business that actually adds value to people as well. And yeah, like you were saying, I think you guys could easily transition into those other products like energy and power and stuff.
We definitely love to, because I guess what we see is people want to be green, right? And there's very few people out there that are actively not going towards net zero. But it is, like you said, it can be daunting because it's not as straightforward. You've got all these worries, and actually the costs come into it, right? So that's kind of what we think about a lot. It's like, how do we make it easier for people? How can we make it more affordable for people? And with cars, that's ended up being through salary sacrifice, which has meant a whole interesting kind of different business model. But I think there's a role we can play in these other areas as well. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how you get on then over the next 10 years.
Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Is that a wrap then? Was there anything else?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for having me, guys. And it's been a really interesting conversation. I feel very optimistic and very positive now. So thank you for doing this.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly worth your while. For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/worth-your-while.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Worth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.